My brother had an affair with my fiancée and got her pregnant right before our wedding. At that time, I smashed her face and kicked her out of my life. Now my parents want me to forgive them, but I told them to go away, and I walked away from everyone. This is going to be long and confusing. As it seems, I will try to be as concise as possible, but there is a lot to unravel here. I don't care if anyone believes this story or not. It's so surreal that I need to get it off my chest. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything, but I will avoid any details that can relate to me for those who don't know the situation. Yet I am a 32-year-old man, and until a few months ago, I was engaged to my girlfriend of 5 years, who I will call Sarah, betrayed me. My younger brother Meek is 29 years old and has always been the golden boy of the family. To really understand the depth of this betrayal and why it has affected me so much, it is necessary to know some background of my family and how we got to this point since we were children. Mike never made mistakes in the eyes of our parents, while I was constantly criticized and punished for the smallest things. It wasn't just the typical sibling rivalry or mild favoritism. It was blatant and extreme. Mickey would break something, and I would be blamed if he started a fight. I was the one getting punished. If we both got good grades, he would get bought a new video game console while I just got a pat on the back and told to keep it up. Our parents, who I will call Tommy Linda, always found an excuse for his behavior. Mickey is younger. He needs more attention. You are the oldest. You should know better, or who is more sensitive. We have to be careful with him. This constant bias and favoritism made me feel worthless and unwanted in my own home. As we grew up, the favoritism became even more apparent when I got into a good university on a partial scholarship. My parents barely acknowledged it. But when Mike decided to go to community college, they threw him a huge party and bought him a car so he could get back and forth. Regardless of the fact that I had been biking 5 miles to my part-time job for years, I moved out as soon as I could to escape the toxic environment at home. I paid for college with 2 jobs and loans. Meanwhile, Mickey dropped out after 1 semester, claiming college wasn't for him. My parents fully supported his decision and praised him for knowing himself and not conforming to society's expectations. They even funded his multiple failed ventures. Over the next few years, despite the distance I tried to put between my family and me, they always found a way to drag me back in Christmas. Dinners were a nightmare of passive-aggressive comments and not-so-subtle comparisons. "Oh, you're still at that entry-level job. Well, Mickey is thinking about starting another business. He's such an entrepreneur." It didn't matter that I was building a stable career as long as Mickey consumed my parents' retirement funds. I tried to maintain a relationship with me that, despite everything, after all, he was still my brother, but it was always one-sided. I would reach out to try to connect, and he would ignore me or find some way to turn the conversation into a competition that he could win if I got a promotion. Suddenly, he had a big opportunity in sight. If I started dating someone, he was miraculously also in a serious relationship. It was during one of my attempts to reconnect with Mickey when I met Sarah. She was friends with one of his short-term girlfriends, and she got me right away. Sarah was everything I had ever wanted in a partner: smart, funny, kind, and absolutely beautiful. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly happy and valued. My parents, unsurprisingly, weren't all that thrilled. They would make snide comments about how Sarah was out of my league and question what she saw in me. Mickey, on the other hand, suddenly became very interested in my life. Constantly, I asked about Sarah, wanting to know everything about her at the time. If I was just happy that he seemed interested in some of my life. Looking back, I should have noticed the warning signs. Sarah and I moved in together after a year of dating, and things were going well. We both had good jobs, we traveled, and talked about the future. I started to feel like maybe I could have the life I had always wanted: a successful career, a loving partner, and maybe even kids. Someday I proposed to Sarah on our 4th anniversary. It was nothing to write home about, just a quiet dinner at home and a heartfelt speech. She said yes, and I felt like I was on top of the world. We decided to have a long-term engagement to take our time. Plan meaning the wedding. There was no rush. We had our whole lives ahead of us. Or so I thought. When we announced our engagement to my family, the reactions were mixed. To say the least, my mother put on a fake smile and said how cute, in a tone that suggested she didn't think it was cute at all. My father grunted a good luck with that before going back to looking at the TV. Meek's reaction, however, was the strangest. He congratulated us. But there was something odd about his smile, something almost predator. I dismissed it at the time. I blame my own insecurities. The next year was filled with wedding planning and work stress. Sarah and I worked long hours trying to save up for the wedding and a down payment on a house we didn't see each other as much as we used to. But I thought it was just a phase all couples go through. Looking back, I should have noticed the signs. Sarah became more distant, always on her phone, smiling at someone's texts, and quickly saying that she was just a friend from work, started hanging out more with her friends, and I would come home late smelling of alcohol and cologne. However, I trusted her completely, never thought she could be cheating, let alone with my own brother. About 4 months ago, Sarah started acting even stranger. She was moody, irritable, and constantly nauseous. I thought maybe she was pregnant and got excited at the idea. No, we had been trying, but we had talked about wanting to have kids someday. I started imagining how I would support her, thinking about colors for the nursery and baby names. Then one night she sat up with tears in her eyes and dropped the bombshell she was pregnant, but it wasn't mine. I was stunned because we hadn't been intimate in a while due to our busy schedules, but I never imagined she would cheat on me. When I asked her who the father was, she completely broke down and whispered it was mine. That at that moment my whole world shattered. Everything I thought I knew, everything I had built, crumbled around me. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think. The only thing I could feel, it was an overwhelming feeling of betrayal and loss. Sarah tried to explain, her words coming out between sobs. Apparently it had all started at our engagement party. Meek had cornered her and told her she was making a mistake by marrying me. He played on her insecurities, telling her she could do the best he could, give her everything I couldn't. It wasn't a one-time thing. They had been having an affair for months. I kicked Sarah out that night. I couldn't stand to look at her. I couldn't stand to be in the same room with the woman who had betrayed me so completely. She begged me to forgive her. She said it was a mistake and that she loved me. But all I could think about was how many times she had lied to my face. How many times she had been with my brother while wearing the ring I had given her after Sarah left. I called Meek, not remembering exactly what I had said, just a mix of rage and hurt. At first he tried to stay calm, saying it had all been a drunken mistake, that I didn't. It meant nothing. But when I confronted him more forcefully, he got defensive and blurted out, well, maybe if I had been a better fiancé, she wouldn't have come to me at that moment. I saw red. I got in my car and drove straight to his apartment, determined to do something that would make him regret his words. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but when I arrived, I found an unpleasant surprise. Our parents were already there. Mike had called them first, telling them a story about how Sarah had seduced him and how sorry he was. As expected, they believed him as always. My mother immediately began to lecture me about forgiveness and the importance of family, while my father simply stood with his arms crossed, looking at me with disappointment. Of course, not to his precious Mike. I tried to explain to them what had really happened, but they didn't want to listen to me. They just repeated that I should forgive Meek and support Sarah during her pregnancy, because family comes first. I lost control. All the anger repressed for years came to the surface. I said exactly what I thought about their twisted sense of loyalty. How they had always favored Mika at my expense, never supporting me. I screamed at Mika that he was dead. To me, that he was no longer my brother. And I told my parents that they could keep the son they had always wanted because they no longer had me. I stormed off, ignoring their screams and pleas. I drove for hours, aimlessly, just needing to get away from everything and everyone. When I finally got home, I found dozens of missed calls and messages on my phone. Some were from Sarah begging for another chance, others from Mika alternating between apologies and accusations. Most were from my parents demanding dose. I barely ate. I barely slept. I called in sick at work. Using all my vacation days, I couldn't face anyone or stand the thought of having to explain what had happened. I spent my days alone in my apartment, reliving every moment of my relationship with Sarah. Every interaction with Mike, trying to see where I had gone wrong. It's been 3 months since then. I moved to a new apartment, changed my phone number, and started therapy to deal with this chaos. But my family won't leave me alone despite my efforts to cut off all contact. They keep finding ways to intrude into my life. They've started showing up at my workplace, trying to ambush me to force a reconciliation. My mother corners me in the parking lot crying, saying I'm breaking up the family. My father leaves aggressive voicemails telling me I need to be a man and forgive my geek. My geek himself has tried to reach out to me multiple times, but I've managed to avoid him so far. They've even sent other family members to put pressure on me. Uncles, aunts, and cousins that I haven't talked to in years are suddenly calling, telling me how important family is and that I should put the past behind me. It's like they live in an alternate reality where what Meek and Sarah did is just a small mistake, not something that has changed my life forever. The most recent thing is that I got a text from Sarah yesterday. She says she has decided to keep the baby and wants to co-parent with Mika. And guess what? My parents are excited about the idea of being grandparents, completely ignoring the circumstances of how it all happened. Sarah had the audacity to say that she hopes we can all be friends someday, for the sake of the child. I'm at the edge of despair. A part of me wants to just cut all ties and start over somewhere else. Move to another state. Change my name. Build a new life where no one knows about this mess. But another part of M is so full of rage. I want to stay and fight. Make them see how fucked up this situation is. I don't know what to do. The betrayal has invaded every aspect of my life. I can't stand to be alone with my thoughts. I haven't even considered dating someone else. The idea of trusting someone terrifies me. I've lost friends too. Some believe that I should take the high road and reconcile with my family as if I'm the one in the wrong. For not wanting to play happy families with the people who have hurt me the most. The idea of Sarah and Meek raising a child together, a child that should have been mine, is like a constant knife in my gut. I know logically the child is innocent in all of this. It's not the baby's fault that his parents are liars and cheaters. But I can't help but have negative feelings towards his existence. My parents now talk about how I need to be involved in the child's life. How I'm going to be an uncle. The idea sickens me. How am I supposed to look at this child and not see the ultimate symbol of my brother's betrayal like that? What Reddit? I guess what I'm asking is, am I the idiot for refusing to forgive my brother and my ex-fiancée? I am wrong to want to cut ties with my family over this. Any advice on how to move forward would be appreciated, because right now I feel like I am drowning in a sea of betrayal and deceit. I know this was long. And if you have read this far, thank you. Writing all this has been cathartic in a way. I don't know what I hope to gain by posting this. Maybe validation, maybe advice, or just the chance to scream into the void and have someone hear me edit this blew up overnight. Thanks everyone for the support and advice. I am overwhelmed by the response, and it will take me time to read all the comments. But I wanted to address some common questions. Yes, I have spoken to a lawyer about a restraining order against my family. It is in process, though. I don't plan on having contact with the baby. I know it is not the child's fault, but I can't get involved without losing my sanity for those asking about my job. I have already spoken to human resources about the situation. They are aware and supportive. They have increased security at the front desk, and I have been given the option to work from home more often. I am grateful for your understanding. Many of you have asked if I have considered moving to another city or state. It is definitely something I am thinking about. My company has offices in several other cities, so a transfer might be possible. I am weighing the pros and cons for those suggesting a DNA test. Sarah admitted to the affair and the timeline matches. I have no reason to believe the child is not mine. That even if by some miracle it did turn out to be mine, I am not sure I would be able to look at that child without thinking of this betrayal. I have been overwhelmed by the IT of people sharing similar stories. It is heartbreaking to know how common this type of betrayal is. But it's also comforting to know that I'm not alone. Thank you all for your support, and for sharing your own experiences. For those asking if I have considered taking legal action against me for alienation of affection, I looked into it, but sadly, it's not recognized in my state. Even if it was, I'm not sure I have the energy for a legal battle right now. Many have pointed out that Meek's behavior seems narcissistic. I've started reading up on narcissistic personality disorder. And a lot of what you say seems true. It's helping me understand, if not justify, some of his actions. As for Sarah's family, they are as shocked and disgusted as you would expect. They have cut off contact with her, and have reached out to offer their support. It's a small consolation, but I appreciate it. As for if I have thought about having my own children one day, Honestly, this whole experience has made me wonder if I want to start a family. I'm trying not to make any major decisions while I continue to process all of this. I will update if anything significant happens. But for now, I am focusing on healing and moving on. Thanks again. Read it. Your support and advice has given me a lot to think about. Honestly, you have been a lifesaver during this difficult time. I may not respond to all the comments, but know that I read them all, and they are helping me feel less alone. Update a hello Reddit. It's been about 2 weeks since my post, and first of all, it has been a complete roller coaster. Thank you all for the support and advice. Overwhelming. I never expected my post to blow up like this. And reading all of your comments has been heartbreaking and oddly comforting. It's amazing how common this type of betrayal is. The last few weeks have been intense, to say the least. Remember how I mentioned I was working on getting a restraining order? Well, that turned into quite an ordeal. My lawyer filed the petition and we had a hearing scheduled. I thought it would be simple given the evidence and the constant harassment. But I was wrong. My parents showed up to the hearing with his own attorney, a fancy guy in an expensive suit who probably charges more per hour than I make in a week. Tried to paint me as unstable, claiming I was tearing the family apart over a simple misunderstanding, like if Miki accidentally tripped and fell on my fiancé. Luckily, the judge didn't buy it and granted the restraining order against me and my parents. However, this didn't happen without my mother bursting into cry in the courtroom and my father looking at me like I had just committed a crime. The look on Mickey's face. I swear if looks could kill, I would be 6 feet under. As we walked out of the courthouse, Mike tried to get closer to me, but my attorney stepped between us, reminding him of the newly established restraining order. Meek just scoffed and said this wasn't over and I couldn't hide behind a court order forever. I'd be lying if I said his words didn't shake me a little. But for now, at least I have some legal protection. The work situation has been another nightmare. Remember how I mentioned my family had been showing up at my place of work? Well, that came to a head last week. I was in a meeting with a client when my assistant called me saying my mother was in the lobby and was causing a scene. Apparently, she brought a photo album and was trying to show my coworkers baby pictures of Mickey and me while sobbing because her kids used to be so close. I excused myself from the meeting and went down to the lobby where I found my mother surrounded by a group of awkward coworkers to whom she was telling a story about how McQuay and I used to take baths together when we were little. When she saw me, she tried to run up to me talking about a baby shower, but I cut her off. Told her she had to leave immediately, or I would call the police. Security escorted her out, and I had to spend the next hour doing damage control with my boss and my coworkers. Luckily, most of them understood, but I could tell that some were wondering what kind of drama the confrontation with Mickey was bringing to the workplace. However, that was where things really went off the rails last Saturday. I was at the gym trying to get some of my anger out on the punching bag. I was so focused on my workout that I didn't notice someone approaching from behind until I heard his voice. I turned around and there was Mike smiling at me as if I hadn't just violated the restraining order. He started talking loud enough that people nearby would hear him. I told him to leave before he called the police, but he just laughed and said he would tell them how I had been threatening him and Sarah. That was when I lost it. I threw a punch at him that connected with his jaw. He stumbled back before launching himself at me. We ended up on the ground exchanging blows like we were kids again. Except this time, there were no parents to separate us. No one told me to be the bigger person and let Miki win. I gave him a few good punches before the gym staff pulled us apart. Miki's nose was bleeding, and I could feel mine swelling up as we both screamed, trying to break free and attack us again. The gym manager threatened to call the police, and that finally calmed me down. I grabbed my stuff and left. As I drove home, still shaking from adrenaline, I got a call from an unknown number, against my better judgment. I responded. It was Sarah yelling at me. She told me that I had broken Mika's nose and that he might need surgery. I laughed. I couldn't help the absurdity of her being mad at me. After all they had done, it was too much. I told her I was sorry and I kinda hurt her dear boyfriend, who she had been sleeping with behind my back for months. She started sobbing, and then talked about how stressed she was and how the baby could sense her distress. How could she be so selfish? I hung up on her and blocked the number. The fallout from the fight was intense. The news had spread like wildfire through our social circle. My phone was blowing up with text messages from friends and family. Some took my side. Others called me names for hitting my poor defenseless brother. Sarah's parents reached out again to reiterate their support and express their disappointment in their daughter. It was small consolation. But at this point, I'll take what I can get. The restraining order is gone. It seems enough. Mike has shown that he is willing to rape her, and I am worried about what he might do next. The legal consequences have been a nightmare. The day after the incident at the gym, I got a call from my lawyer. Apparently, Mickey had filed assault charges against me. I explained to him what had happened, how Mickey had violated the restraining order, and how he provoked me. My lawyer sighed and said, "You would fight. But it could be an uphill battle since I threw the first punch. We are in the process of filing our own charges against Mickey for violating the restraining order. My lawyer seems confident that this will help our case. Nothing is certain at this point. I have had to testify to the police, show them the bruises on my face, and face the humiliation of defending myself against my own brother. The gym that used to be one of the few places I could release my anger in a healthy way has banned Mike and I from entry for life. I can blame them. Although it hurts me deeply, my cousin to me, who I have always had a close relationship, he called me the other day. His support has been comforting and has brought family warmth in the midst of all this. However, he told me something disturbing about what is going on behind the scenes. Apparently, my parents have been telling everyone that I am going through a mental crisis. They claim that the relationship between Sarah and Meek started after our breakup, and that I am just jealous and can't let go. He told me that many in the family don't believe in those versions, but some are enraged to see that lies are being spread about me while I try to stay calm and recover at work. The situation has been, to put it mildly, challenging after the incident with my mom in the lobby and the fight with Mickey circulating on local social media. I can feel like my coworkers are walking on eggshells around me. Earlier this week, my boss called me into his office. He started saying that he values my work and understands that I am going through a difficult time, but then surprised me with an offer. Would I consider that Tom take a leave until things calm down? He proposed to call it a personal sabbatical, if I preferred to get paid. I wanted to discuss it, and tell him that work is the only thing that keeps me sane right now. But I saw that the decision had already been made. So I accepted, thanked him, and started packing up my office. When I left, I heard 2 coworkers whispering about how my brother had got my fiancée pregnant. I closed the door harder than necessary, taking a small satisfaction from seeing them jump. I can't deny that all this is affecting me deeply. I have started taking long night walks just to get out of my apartment. Sometimes I find myself parked in front of my old place that I shared with Sarah. I ask, feeling how my life turned into such a mess. In the midst of all this chaos, I have found support in an unexpected source. Sarah's younger sister Emma reached out to me through social media to apologize for her sister's actions and offer me her support. At first I was skeptical, fearing it was some kind of trick. But after talking to her, I realized she is just as upset by Sarah's behavior as I am. Emma has been giving me information about what is going on in Sarah and Mika's life. They have apparently moved in together and are acting like they haven't destroyed multiple lives to be together. Emma says Sarah has been trying to portray herself as the victim, crying to anyone who wants to hear how she never meant to hurt anyone, and how she and I are soulmates who found each other against all odds, even though this turns my stomach. I thank Emma for keeping me informed, as the knowledge, even though I would rather not have it, is power. The situation on social media has been another nightmare. I've always been private, but all this has thrown me into an unwanted spotlight. I suspect one of Mika's friends posted about our fight on a local Facebook group. The post didn't mention our names, but described the situation in enough detail that anyone who knows us could understand it. The comments section became a battleground. Some defended me, saying Mike got what he deserved, while others called me unstable and said I should be locked up. I made the mistake of reading some comments one night after drinking too much, and ended up throwing my phone so hard I cracked the screen. I have since deactivated most of my social media accounts. I can't deal with the constant notifications and messages from people I haven't talked to in years, suddenly wanting to know all the juicy details of my personal life with everything that's happened. I've realized I can't stay in this town anymore. There are too many memories and too many chances of running into Sarah, Mike, or my parents. I've started looking for transfers within my company. There's an opening in our Seattle office that looks promising. It's not ideal, as I've never been a fan of constant rain. But right now, I'd move to the moon if it meant getting away from all this drama. I haven't made a final decision yet. But the idea of a fresh start is becoming more and more appealing. New city, new apartment, new life, a place where no one knows me as the guy whose brother got his fiancée pregnant. My parents have been suspiciously quiet since the restraining order was issued. I'm waiting for them to find a new way to try and force their way back into my life. Sarah has been spreading the news of her pregnancy everywhere. Emma tells me she's been posting constant updates on social media, including ultrasound pictures, pictures of her abdomen, and more, always with captions about how blessed she and Mike feel and how excited they are to start their family. Each new post feels like an open wound, reopening the pain just when I think I'm starting to heal. This is how things are now. 2 weeks ago, I thought my life couldn't get any more complicated, but in some ways it is still am angry and hurt, but I'm also tired of defending myself. So here I am on Reddit. I guess this is less of an update and more of a cry into the void. I'm not sure what I'm asking for right now. Advice, sympathy, a time machine to go back and never introduce Sarah to my brother no matter what. I will try to keep you all informed. Your support has meant more to me than you can imagine. It's good to remember there are still good people out there, even when I feel like my world is full of betrayal and lies. Update 2 and final. Hi Reddy, it's been 7 days since my last update, and I'm back with what I hope will be my last post about this whole situation. First off, I want to thank everyone for their support and advice throughout this difficult experience. Your words have been a lifesaver during the darkest times of my life. For starters, a lot has happened in just a week, and I'm still trying to process it all. The most important news is that I'm moving. Yes, I have accepted a transfer to our office in Seattle. It wasn't an easy decision, but I knew I needed a fresh start after everything I've been through. This decision came after a particularly difficult time last week. I had just returned from a meeting with my attorney about Mike's assault charges when I found a letter in my mailbox. It was from Sarah. I almost threw it without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me inside. I found an ultrasound picture and a handwritten note. Sarah was talking about how excited she and Meek were about their baby, and how she hoped I could find it in my heart to be happy about it. The note said the baby would love to have his uncle in his life. I saw red without thinking twice. I grabbed my phone, unlocked Sarah, and dialed her number. She answered on the second ring, and I just let go. I told her exactly what I thought of her about Meek and their happy little family. I told her that she would be fooling me if she thought I would ever want anything to do with that child, and that as far as I was concerned, she, Meek, and the baby could go to hell. It wasn't my finest moment, but I felt like I had finally said everything I had. Inside it was, at that moment, that I knew I couldn't stay in this city any longer. I called my boss that same night and informed him that I wanted to take the transfer to Seattle. It seemed relieved, to be honest. I think he was worried about how all this drama might affect the company. He promised to expedite the paperwork, and the next morning it was official. I had 2 weeks to pack up and move to another side of the country. The news of my move spread quickly among my family and social circle as expected. My parents were furious. They showed up at my apartment unannounced again, violating the restraining order, trying to dissuade me from moving. My mom was crying, saying I was abandoning the family, while my dad was red in rage and yelling that I was being selfish and immature. I didn't get involved. I just called the police and had them removed for violating the restraining order as they escorted them out. My mom yelled that I would regret this, that family was everything, and I was throwing it all away. I just locked the door and went back to packing. Meek's reaction was different. He didn't try to contact me directly, probably because of the pending legal issues, but he posted a long post on social media about how some people can't stand to see others happy, and how he and Sarah were getting over the hate to focus on their new family. Clearly, it was directed at me, trying to paint himself as the victim. I admit it hurt me to see how many people were liking and commenting, supporting him. But I reminded myself that their opinion doesn't matter. They don't know the truth. Sarah's reaction was the most surprising after our call. She reached out to her sister Emma, who, as you may recall, had been keeping me informed about what was going on with Sarah and Mika. My words hit harder than I expected. Emma told me that Sarah had broken down, admitting that she knew what she and Meek had done was wrong, and that she was terrified for the future. My cousin Amy, who is a true angel, offered to help me pack as well. She told me more about what had been going on in the family. To me, she told me that my aunt, my mom's sister, had a huge fight with my mom, calling her for always favoring Meek and pushing me away. The fight got pretty ugly, with my aunt saying my parents were reaping what they had sown with years of favoritism. I can't say that I'm not a little satisfied knowing someone is finally calling them out on their behavior. The legal situation is still ongoing, but my lawyer assures me that my decision to move won't affect the case. We are still filing charges against Meek for violating the restraining order and fighting the assault charges that he filed against me. My lawyer is confident that the judge will look at Meek's claims, especially considering his history of violating the restraining order. The fact that I'm moving across the country as well should help prove that I'm not a threat to my Ike, which could help get his charges dismissed. I'm not sure if I will post more updates after this. Starting over means leaving the past behind, and as helpful as this community has been, I think it's time to stop repeating this story. I need focus on building my new life, not my old one. So I guess this is my last update. Good luck, Reddit. I have a whole new life waiting for me in Seattle, and I intend to make the most of it.